The Instax WIDE Evo, a camera you can't help but love. Interactions with people make it worthwhile.
Oh, and then you go like this. This is an Instax WIDE Evo. And then there's a little crank with the wheel.
And everyone seems to love it.
And then it kind of...
It's a camera that garners attention.
Goes like this, and it should come out the top.
Oh my god, that is so cool.
It's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
in this video, I'm going to show you just how special it is.
Yeah, do you want the photo? Hang a second. Yeah. Hang a second. Alright, here we go. Ready? Oh, one looking at the camera. There you go. There you go. Here we go, hang a second. All we've got to do is press play.
Do you work here though?
Yeah, I do. I do the YouTube. You see me on the screen every now and then. I do that. There you go. And it should.
Does it come out, is it?
I've got a number of things that I really want to test out with this Instax WIDE. I, of course, have had one before. It was really great and I liked the size of the image. However, it was an optical one rather than a digital wide camera. So the image quality may be a little bit different compared to what I got before. However, this digital camera is actually surprisingly good. This comes at the end of my kind of like tour around Cardiff. I was going out shooting with the Hero 13, just doing a little bit of street photography and testing out some of the filter and effects inside of the camera. Now, the photos I got, I'm actually really quite happy with. And that's actually surprising here. This camera is not necessarily the highest quality camera on the market. It's only 16 megapixels. It's only got a 1/3 inch sensor on it. But where it counts, it actually produces some amazing image quality. And of course, it doesn't necessarily need to be the highest quality camera inside of here because most of the photos you're going to take with this are just going to be printed straight out. Of course, compared to the Evo Mini, which was around about a 5 megapixel camera, this is a 16 megapixel camera. So the image quality is going to be overall better than the Mini series. I would also like to talk about the size here, at being just 490 grams and really quite almost pocketable. Pocketable for me because I'm such a large human being, but it's actually a really good size. It's not too encumbersome, and like the previous iterations of the wide camera anyway, this feels remarkably good quality. I don't feel like this is going to break on me, at least not that easy. And in that respect, that's quite a nice feeling. It's good to have a camera that, one, feels sturdy, two, you know is going to get amazing images, and three, also look the piece. I can see myself even taking this to weddings. Anyway, what's next? The next thing I want to talk about here is the actual tactile ergonomics of the camera. It's absolutely a beauty just to use and adapt to whatever you really want it to. Of course, when it came to the Leica sofa, which we reviewed on this channel a little while ago, you had 10 by 10 different kind of like settings and effects and, you know, things you could actually do. It's made up to 100 plus ways in which you could take a photo. With this though, it has a unique feature, which is this ring around the front of the camera. And when you've got effects on, you've got up to 100 different iterations of that same effect. So it then almost becomes infinite. Yeah, well, infinite may be a bad word here, but this camera actually pretty much gives you ultimate creative freedom over what you want to take photos of. Earlier I did a shot with the GoPro, and depending on how good quality it came out, it's going to be in this video. And this is from the GoPro rather than my actual main camera. And what I want to talk about here is how much fun it actually is. I actually had a very interesting interaction earlier where I was just testing out the little bits of the camera, getting some B-roll with my iPhone, and a couple of guys came up and she's like, yeah man. I was like, hey, do you want an actual photo? And I took a photo of them, instantly brought it out and gave it to them. Now that interaction isn't really massively unique when it does come to cameras like these. It's an honest reaction, it's a great reaction. But when you think about it, this camera's not just a camera, but also an instant printer there as well. So from a professional standpoint, if you want to show some photos that you've actually taken, or for example, if you're particularly a wedding photographer, videographer, At the end of the day, edit a quick sample image, send it to the Instax WIDE, and then print it out straight there on the dot for them. And I think that's a really special interaction, and it's something which has come up in a podcast I recently did with Abigail, who does maternity shoots, and it's all about the kind of like client interaction. And I think not just for that is something that they really have worked on to perfect and make sure it's as streamlined and as easy as possible. Now imagine at the end of that shoot, you're just like, okay, you want a sample photo, just connect it simply to your phone and then transfer it over. These two people noticed I was taking photos, and I was like, do you want an actual photo from it? So proceeded to then take another photo of them and then gave it to them. This is interaction which I don't feel is that odd to actually see when it comes to instant photo cameras. And I look forward to doing it a little bit more in the future. This is an interaction that I also had when I was using the Leica sofa. I think with this one, because it's a little bit more characterful, I can see it happening a little bit more often. In fact, I want to tell you a little bit story about when this actually first came into the store. Of course, they've been released for a little while now, but we've just had them in for the first time recently. And the director of the company comes rushing into my office and he goes, "Stuart, check this out, we need to do content on it straight away." And I've been like, been wanting to do content on it for a really long time. And I've seen the camera and I actually want it. He then proceeded to take it to the store, in which he took a plethora of photos. And ultimately, the experience that I've had from a number of the salesmen inside of the store as well, is that this camera is truly fun to use. And I can ultimately see why it got them excited. It's a good quality instant photography camera that just allows you to be creatively free without necessarily worrying about anything that will actually end up bogging you down. In fact, some of the effects settings in here I could quite easily see being put into the Fuji's main line cameras as well. And it's something I feel could be expanded on. But right now where we are, I think this is perhaps one of my favourite cameras of this year. Let's continue.
What's great about this camera as well is you've actually got the ability to use exposure compensation. So I took this photo at the end of the arcade and I wanted to make sure that the outside was actually exposed correctly and the side was kind of framing what I was viewing. A quick tweak to the exposure compensation allowed me to get the photo I was looking for. Really awesome to have that here. The Evo has two side dials. One controls effects, the other controls the presets. The effects are as followed. You have normal, light leak, light prism, vignette, soft glow, double exposure, color shift, monochrome blur, color gradient, and then beam flares. There's a simple button on the side of the camera to reset any presets or effects that you put on it. Then with these effects, you can mod them a further 100 more times with the control wheel on the actual lens, giving you almost infinite possibilities here. Here's some examples of the different flares you can use on the same kind of photo. Going on from this a little bit further, there's a button on the top that allows you to change between 5 more effects. This includes a film strip, cinematic, Kaleidian process kind of looking image, contact sheet, and date stamp. As I said, this is a 16mm, but it's f2.4, making it a nice low aperture here. Going on from that, I wanted to test out the quality of the prints, so I printed one of the sharpest photos I actually have on my phone, which is from the GFX 100 Mark II. Here is the photos together, and then looking in, as you can see, it does degrade the image and make it a much more manageable size, but it's not necessarily something you're going to see all the time. And then this is the Instax wide photo compared to the Instax mini photos. As you can see, there's a large size difference here, and I honestly do prefer the size of the wide image, perhaps even more than Polaroid. Changing the film is easy, of course. You just have to undo the back where the screen is, and then put in the new film, matching up the yellow line on the top right hand corner.
Now, is it the perfect camera? A issue that I ended up having when I was changing film is that the camera screen would just completely freeze and I wouldn't actually be able to turn it off. A little bit of just like searching on the internet, I found they've actually got a reset switch Now, usually this will be done with the main on and off button, but because it's a switch here, you can't necessarily do that. Pretty cool that they thought of that and, you know, made sure if there's anyone having an issue, there's actually a way to fully reset the camera and make it, you know, and make it turn off and on again if you have issues like that. Again, this could be fixed with firmware in the future, but, you know, still a nice little interface, and I'll make sure, you know, to show how I actually managed to sort out that issue in this video, because I didn't see any videos on it on the internet. It's just a nice little extra, really. The lens on this camera is actually 16mm equivalent to full frame, with the ability to toggle a switch on the side to make it a 28mm. This is of course a digital zoom, so you're not actually getting that 16 megapixel readout that you get with just a normal photo. It is put down to 5 megapixels. But again, that's all the real size you really need in this camera. And I recently did a video with the TX1, which was a 10 megapixel camera, and I was actually really happy with the photos I got out of it. And of course, this is a much newer sensor than the sensor that was in that camera. So it's one of those things where, like, could it be better? Ultimately, yes. They could put a full frame, put a Q3 on the front of this, put a Fuji GFX RF on the front of this, and then have a printer on the back. Maybe a bit overkill, and I don't necessarily think GFX shooters would necessarily need the ability to print off their photos without them editing it quite heavily. But, you know, the optical quality, the image quality of this is pretty damn good, and I'm actually very impressed. Which I know happens quite often, because most cameras are fantastic these days. But when it comes to a camera like a Instax, you're not necessarily expecting super high quality, but this time I was pleasantly surprised, shall we say. Anyway, simplicity seems to be the name of the game here, and just being able to connect your camera to your phone as quickly and as seamlessly as possible is actually super important. It wasn't that hard of a process. You literally just connect, enter a few details, and there you go. Your camera is now connected to your phone. And this ends up becoming an even easier process once this is done, where unlike a lot of apps which give you like a 10 to 15 second wait before it actually connects inside of it, with this one, it connects pretty much straight away. With also a number of other features there as well, like being able to transfer your photos from here to your phone. Now, with that, you end up getting a 5 megapixel image converted from the 16 megapixel out of here. So it's not necessarily the ideal way of actually transferring your photos, but for Instagram posts, Facebook, social media, absolutely perfect. And you don't necessarily need to worry about it too much further than that, really, to be honest with you. Another feature which I feel like would be quite handy here is actually remote shooting. So like most other cameras these days, you're actually able to control it from your smartphone, which means if you're doing a selfie of everybody, you can just set the camera up somewhere, walk away and control it straight from your phone, which again is a nice little added feature. And I would say the app is probably one of the most impressive apps that I've seen from camera brands recently when it comes to just the ease of use and the connectivity. Again, well done here, Fuji, Instax, whatever. You did a really good job, and it is a lot of fun. Something I haven't actually mentioned here is, of course, it has an internal memory. This is only really usable by the 5 megapixel images that is set to as default. However, simply putting a micro SD card in there allows you to have full control over the image, and 1 gigabyte ends up being almost 100 photos, so you don't necessarily need to buy a super expensive one, and you don't necessarily need the fast readout speeds because it's not necessarily what this camera is about. But yes, you can actually put a micro SD in there next to the USB-C port used to actually charge the camera. Earlier I was talking about the tactile nature of the actual camera, and it is really just designed to be fun, right? So you've got the ability to just crank the photos out, which, as you just seen, and it is almost comical, which is quite nice, and especially if you're having interactions with people, it is quite funny just to be like, I'm getting a photo out. Of course, this could have been handled by just a button, but it's nice that it's handled a bit different here, I guess. And again, everything with this camera, I feel, is very much designed for that fun aspect. It's not a camera you're using seriously for the most part, and it's just something that will just give you an unbridled fun experience. Anyway, this is now a couple days after actually shooting the main video part of the Evo review, and I wanted to just have a kind of roundup of what experience that I've had with it so far. Now I'm going to be doing a little bit more with it just in general. You may see a couple more reels up on the channel. What I really like about the Evo is how much of an accessory I could see it being to me as a professional shooter. What's really great about it is the interactions you can have with other people. I said this before whilst doing reviews of instant cameras, and that is one of my favourite things about them, is the reactions you get from people, and especially things that are a little bit unexpected. At the start of the video, I showed me taking a photo of an arcade and someone stepping into the photo. I then proceeded to print out the photo for them and took a photo of the two guys together. This ended up happening 2 or 3 times, 2, 3, 4 times through the course of filming other reviews as well. Instant photography is such a beautiful and fun experience just to do in general. But with this, it's a little bit different. You can really get quality out of it as well. And the thing what I would say to kind of like show this off the most is the ability to simply just take a photo, take it to your phone, which you can edit further if you want to, and then just print out straight away. This camera is great for people and photographers who both want to take some great photos, but also want to print out their photos. In this day and age, we have such a massive focus on electronic, getting likes for your photos, and because you can download the photos, you can still do it with this Instax Evo Wide, but you actually get something physical, and that physical interaction I feel like is a key component here. The other thing I would like to say is the size of it is absolutely gorgeous. I was actually holding it in my pocket for a little time, and again, I can have quite large pockets because I'm quite a large individual. But it's a really decent size. It can fit pretty much in any kind of bag or thing that you want it to. And this is something the Instax Wides haven't been able to do, at least for the most part. Again, because it's digital, you've got the quality. It's a printer, so you can transfer your quality photos with your main cameras over to it. I'm going to be taking this camera with me to see my family this weekend for Mother's Day. And I can't think of a more pure kind of situation to actually really have some fun with it. It's that instant reaction from taking a photo to printing it out to showing the people that you love or just having it there. This is why I think it is a brilliant, brilliant camera. The last thing I'd like to say here is that it looks absolutely gorgeous as well, being very reminiscent of an old film camera, but without not necessarily going that much further. So it's why I think the Instax Evo is something that I am genuinely going to buy for myself. And if you're looking at this video, it's something that you're really considering, and I do genuinely think it's a brilliant item. I have mentioned in the video that every now and then it does freeze up, but you do have a custom reset button there, and I feel like this could actually get fixed with some firmware just in general. So again, it's a very early stage model. I think we literally got them in as they came in, so this stuff can be fixed, right? But there isn't really many things that I would consider as a bad experience. The only other thing that I would mention right now is gauging the pressure for the shutter switch. Is you get the grips of it, but it's, you know, as someone with such large hands and such strong hands, I feel a little bit worried about pressing it too hard. But that's my only other real comment here. Overall, the Instax Evo was an absolutely wonderful experience, and I would wholeheartedly recommend it to anybody that just wants a fun camera to do photography with and maybe be a really key accessory in your camera bag in 2025 and the years going forward. Anyway,
Have a good day. Please like, follow, subscribe if you want to see more. Yeah.